So here we are again, talking about Ionesco and a different kind of play. If last week we talked about Ionesco sort of in the funny, absurd way, I hope that's not going to be too loud today. It's lots of mowing going on all day. But if last week we were talking about sort of the absurd, funny way that language can be, right? Somewhere between funny and deeply disturbing when we see just how fragile language can be. Rhinoceros is another kind of absurd and another kind of disturbing altogether, isn't it? We have two versions that we're looking at. We're looking at the movie, we're looking at the play. I would like you to look at both because there are different names in both. There are different... the scenes are relatively similar, but we get a chance to see, again, how things sort of would look in a movie version. Now, it is no mistake that the director of this film chose Zero Mostel and Gene Wilder to play the title characters, right? They also worked together in a production of The Producers, which also came out back in this same era. The Producers that probably we might know best today as having had Matthew Broderick and Nathan Lane in the title roles with The Producers. But Zero Mostel, Gene Wilder, did The Producers back when, and it is certainly seen as a great comic pairing, and this is another play in which Ionesco wants there to be comedy, but also wants for there to be some disturbing aspects to what we're going to see, right? He starts the movie version, right? The director starts the movie version by assuring us this could never happen, right? None of these things could ever happen. But we are to understand that for Ionesco, this is a situation that he feels not only, could happen, but has happened and possibly is still happening. Ionesco, as we remember from looking at his biography and looking at the way that Martin Esslin talked about him, is a citizen of Romania. Moved to France, right, learns French first, but does have Romanian, does have English, but is living through, right, periods of time when you have the world wars, you have Eastern Europe encountering fascism and encountering Stalinism and encountering extreme communism and violence, and Ionesco wants to portray that, but in a way that is very poignant because, as we talked about before, humor can take down our defenses. We feel like when we laugh at something, we can kind of open up a little bit. We can kind of be lighter. We can kind of be freer. And Ionesco kind of wants to do that to us to then put wisdom right in to that gap and to show us truth right when we're willing to finally be relaxed enough to accept it, right? That, we can look at this either as a reference to the Nazis, right? How people who would never have been assumed to be Nazis or be anti-Semitic or to be anti-anybody suddenly turned into willing participants of the Nazi regime, right? And also how fascism comes along and people who you'd never suspect as being fascist, who were good, honest, hardworking people, suddenly become fascists. And why do they become so? Well, because everybody's doing it. It seems suddenly to be the way that things are going. Ionesco wants us to look at ourselves and say that we can never say that this will never be me because it has been people that have been like us before, that we need to be constantly vigilant for this. But he does so in a way that is both funny and also touching and also a little bit frightening, right? We should approach this play, read this play, with both a heart to laugh at it, right, and to say that there are some very funny things in this play. There are some very funny things that are done here, and a lot of that laughter, I think, is produced by the incongruity of what's happening versus what we're expecting. Nobody expects to see somebody turn into a rhinoceros, right? It's ridiculous, and it's both funny, but also disturbing, and this idea that you know somebody until you don't can also be, right, again, very, very disturbing. what I want to concentrate on this week, especially as we're going through the first half of this play, is we want to talk about how the characters in this play both are responsible and irresponsible, and how responsibility for Ionesco really does seem to have less to do with our being susceptible to change, our being susceptible to influences from other people, as sort of a just an ignorance of situations, right? I think what we're going to see in this play, and what I hope we do appreciate in this play, is that Berenger, Stanley in the movie version, does not perhaps start out as a very likable character. I think the Gene Wilder version of Berenger, of Stanley, is quite unlikable, quite unremarkable. We look at him, we feel like this is a ridiculous person who, one, makeup and costuming did a great job. He looks hungover. He looks like he's in terrible shape at the beginning of this play. He looks awful, and he acts as if he has completely lost control of his life. He's a bumbling fool, and what we see is that he becomes no more likable throughout the play, but at the same time, his desire to sort of not turn into a rhinoceros is maybe not his fault, right? We're going to talk about all these things. It's a complex play. It's something that I really enjoy. I really think that if you can, watch the film all the way through first, right? Watch the entire film. Go back, read the play, because in certain places it's very difficult to understand and to read all of the lines. It is a complex play. It is a play that definitely has some staging that is best seen on film, is best seen in a live version of it than it is read. But we're going to talk about the different characters. We're going to talk about whether or not in this play do we have, as opposed to with The Bald Soprano, do we have characters that actually want things? Do we have characters that actually seem to have needs? Do we have characters that we can identify what it is that they specifically are looking for? And are they going to get it? Is what they are looking for what leads them to become a rhinoceros? And is there something that we can identify that keeps people from slipping into that position of becoming a rhinoceros? So we'll be back in just a second.